The numbers are in and it's official. Germany has fallen into recession. According to the country's statistical office, Europe's largest economy shrank by 0.3% in the first quarter of 2023. That's after shrinking 0.5% in the final quarter of 2022. 2 quarters of shrinking output is the technical definition of a recession. The media has been talking about Great Britain as the sick man of Europe, the Western European economy that's struggling the most. But the IMF predicts that the UK will still have a faster growing economy this year than Germany. And that's bad news for all of Europe because Germany is the 4th largest economy in the world and by far the largest economy in the European Union. It's the EU's largest exporter and its largest importer. Germany's economy is shrinking along with the economies of the Netherlands, Greece, and Ireland, and that was enough to drag the entire Eurozone into a recession in the early months of 2023. So far, this recession is mild. Germany's unemployment rate sits at 5.6%, barely higher than a year ago. But manufacturing, which is the lifeblood of Germany's economy, is now shrinking at the fastest pace since the COVID-19 pandemic forced shutdowns across the country. Germany's industrial production has been falling since the middle of 2022, but there's one big and obvious problem for the country's economic problems: the war in Ukraine. Germany had been heavily dependent on cheap Russian oil and gas to power its factories and transportation. When the war began in Europe and the Russians began turning off the taps, energy costs in Germany soared. Suddenly, factories were saddled with enormous energy bills that made them unprofitable. Bars and restaurants had to raise their prices, and households were faced with shockingly high bills for electricity and natural gas. Since then, Germany has been busy reworking its energy system, finding new sources for oil and gas, and even firing up some old coal plants to keep the country's electricity grid running. And to an extent, that strategy has worked. Energy bills have come down after their astronomical highs in 2022. But underneath there lies a much larger problem in Germany's economy, a demographic one. Germany's labor pool is shrinking, and the problem is about to accelerate. A large chunk of the country's workforce is in its 50s and 60s and about to retire. There are not nearly enough young people to take their place. In the years to come, that will be a far bigger problem than figuring out how to replace Russian oil. So how did Germany get into this situation, and what are its options to fix the problem? In this video, we'll address these questions, but before we go any further, make sure to hit the subscribe button to get notifications on all our latest videos. And if you like this video, be sure to hit the like button and help us spread the word. Since the end of World War II, Germany has been the economic miracle at the heart of Europe. The country was divided in two by the Allied powers at the end of the war. While East Germany muddled its way through decades of communism, the much larger West Germany became an industrial powerhouse. And with the help of US foreign aid in the form of the Marshall Plan, West Germany rebuilt itself into an exporter of high-value, high-quality manufactured goods. By the 1960s and 70s, German cars were on the roads of cities around the world. German brands like BASF and Adidas were household names. Not to mention the country won a bunch of World Cups along the way. After the Berlin Wall fell and the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union came to an end, the two Germanys unified. The poor East joined the rich West, and Germans celebrated as their country became whole for the first time in nearly half a century. But it turned out the two economies of East and West didn't work very well together. Post-communist Eastern Germany had weak, unproductive industries and a less skilled workforce than West Germany. In the decades since, Eastern Germany has struggled to catch up with the rest of the country. Even today, more than 30 years later, you can see the difference in wealth between the towns of Eastern Germany and Western Germany. For the past 30 years, the average unemployment rate in Eastern Germany has been 13.7%, nearly double the average jobless rate for Germany as a whole at around 7.2%. This difference in wealth has caused a schism in German politics. The rich states of Western Germany are more liberal, more pro-free trade and pro-immigration, while Eastern Germany is more conservative and more opposed to free trade and immigration. Despite the problems between East and West overall, Germany's economy kept growing strongly in the years after unification. But underneath the surface, a new problem was emerging, and that problem was that Germans were having very few kids. Once the baby boom of the post-war years ended, Germany became among the first countries to see its birth rate fall below the rate of replacement, below the 2 children per woman needed to keep the size of a population stable. As long ago as 1980, Germany's birth rate was 1.5 children per woman. That was at a time when most other European countries still had a birth rate at or above 2. Eventually, virtually all of Europe's countries would follow Germany into low birth rates, but Germany got there first, and today this is having a visible impact on the country. Over the next decade, Germany's workforce of 47 million people will shrink by 3 million, and that means a shrinking economy. Fewer working people means fewer things are produced, which means less income. Businesses will be forced to shut down. Germany's export-heavy economy will be harder and harder to maintain. Less income also means less tax revenue. The people still working will have a harder and harder time paying the taxes needed to cover the rising costs of Germany's aging population. Any way you look at it, Germany will be going into decline. There are two potential solutions to Germany's problem. The first is to increase productivity. Productivity is a measure of how much a person working in an economy produces. Let's say you have a community where people make chairs by hand. Every day, each worker can produce one chair. Now let's say you invest in chair-making machinery. Now, each day, each worker can produce 10 chairs using the new machines. You have the same number of workers, but now they produce 10 times as many chairs. This is an increase in productivity. So even if your workforce shrinks from, let's say, 10 workers to 8, you'll still be producing far more chairs than you were before you had the machines, and your society is overall better off. Now, you would think Germany would be a master at this sort of thing. After all, this is the society that came up with the motto Vorsprung durch Technik, advance through technology. But in recent years, Germany hasn't been doing much advancing through technology. In a recent survey, Germany's internet speeds ranked 36th out of 53 countries. Germany's average internet speed is about 60% that of the United States, and it's slower than in countries like China, Thailand, Poland, and Hungary. In most European countries today, you can get lots of government services online. Germany isn't among those countries. In many instances, public administrators still rely on outdated analog systems. Local government offices often have few, if any, services available online. Now, that's not to say all of Germany is lost in the past. Its businesses are still innovators. Germany still ranks top 10 among the world's countries for their inventiveness, but increasingly, these companies are investing their money outside Germany, and there's a lot of money to invest. Germany's consumers are all about saving. With such a strong export economy, Germany's consumer economy is smaller than other Western countries. Consumption accounts for about 55% of Germany's economy compared to 65 to 70% of economies like the US or UK. What that means is Germans have a lot more savings than people in other countries. Ordinarily, that would be a good thing. It would mean the banks have a lot of money they can lend to start new businesses and grow the economy. But in Germany today, businesses are preparing for a slow future with fewer consumers and fewer workers. And what that means is they're investing money outside Germany. In fact, many businesses are planning to shift operations out of Germany altogether. In a recent survey, 16% of all medium-sized businesses in Germany said they had already begun the process of shifting operations to other countries. Another 30% said they are thinking about following suit. That's nearly half of the country's businesses that are planning to take capital and jobs out of Germany. One of the major reasons is the skyrocketing cost of energy in the wake of the Ukraine war. Even now that the worst of the energy crisis has passed, many businesses aren't confident that Germany's energy supplies will be stable in the years to come. But another reason for businesses leaving Germany is the growing shortage of workers. In Germany today, 1 in 6 professions is already experiencing a worker shortage. Germany is short of nurses, auto workers, and construction workers. It needs more truck drivers, architects, pharmacists, and IT specialists. Germany's businesses aren't waiting around to find out if the worker shortage will get worse. They're pulling up stakes today and shifting operations to places like the United States, where the energy supply is more stable, or to Southeast Asia, where labor costs are low and workers are available. That brings us to the other potential solution to Germany's problems. Instead of moving businesses and productions to where workers are, why not bring workers to Germany? Immigration is nothing new to Germany. It had immigration going back to the 2 decades after World War II, when its guest worker program created the ethnic Turkish communities in German cities today. Yet today, immigration is as controversial as it's ever been. During the refugee crisis of 2015, then-Chancellor Angela Merkel allowed a large cohort, mostly of Syrian refugees, to settle in Germany. Between 2015 and 2017, 1.4 million migrants settled in Germany. For Germany, this move accomplished a number of things. It alleviated the migrant crisis to a great extent. It gave Germany a lot of goodwill among its European neighbors, and Merkel's government hoped it would also give Germany's economy a much-needed boost of young blood. The problem is, not all immigration programs are created equal. Take, for instance, Canada's point system. When an immigrant applies to come to Canada, they are assigned points according to the skills they have. You get higher points for having work skills that are in demand in the country, and also more points if you already speak English or French. Canada's immigration system allows the government to match immigrants with the economy's needs. If Canada needs more engineers, it tweaks the point system to give more points to people with an engineering degree. And presto, more engineers arrive in Canada. But Germany, like many European countries, has a compassion-based immigration system. Those people most in need, such as refugees from wars, have generally had priority to enter the country. And while that might be a very noble act on the part of Germany, this kind of immigration doesn't usually result in the kinds of immigrants that a modern Western economy needs. They often lack the education and work experience needed for the jobs available. They face discrimination. They face cultural and linguistic barriers. And the outcome of that is clear in the statistics. 5 years after the refugee crisis of 2015, half of the Syrians who arrived in Germany were still unemployed. And even while Germany has struggled to gain any of the positives that come from immigration, it has gotten plenty of the negatives. Anti-immigrant sentiment has soared, especially in the poorer eastern parts of the country, where migrants are seen as competition for low-wage jobs. And as social tensions between migrants and local Germans rise, an anti-immigration backlash is building. In recent weeks, Germany's far-right anti-immigration party, the Alternative for Germany, or AfD, has become the second most popular political party in the country, behind only the Christian Democratic Union. The Social Democrats, the party of Chancellor Olaf Scholz, is now in third place with just 19% support. And it's not just immigration that is causing Germans to turn to the AfD. Amid the energy crisis, Germany's coalition government has been pushing new laws to move the country faster off of fossil fuels. With the memory of spiking energy bills still fresh in people's heads, many Germans are fearful of making such a move today. The AfD's opposition to the move is resonating with many people in the country. And that brings us to another aspect of Germany's problems: a political class that seems unable to adapt to changing realities and is constantly miscalculating. Take, for instance, Germany's decision to shut down its nuclear power plants in the wake of the Fukushima disaster in Japan. Many of those shutdowns took place not long before Russia invaded Ukraine, creating Germany's energy crisis. Now Germany is scrambling to reopen coal plants to make up the difference. Reopening a shuttered nuclear plant takes time, so coal it is. The country is seeing its carbon emissions spike from coal burning, not exactly the outcome the climate-friendly coalition government was looking for. It's mistakes like these that are giving many German households and businesses second thoughts about the future of their country. Germany has long had a reputation for being a smart country that makes good decisions, well, at least in the post-World War II era. But if its leadership keeps making the kinds of mistakes they've been making lately, that reputation will be replaced by a new one: Germany, the country that can't do anything right. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button and help us spread the word about our channel. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications on our latest news and analysis. In the meantime, check out one of these videos here to learn more. Thanks for watching.